Hey, what's going on, friends and family? My name is Skylent, and I am so in love with all these upcoming action RPGs for all these unique different reasons. Sure, some of them all have really unique world building, some of them have literal building of the world, and some of them have freaking split-screen co-op and promising an open-world Skyrim experience, but like Souls-like difficulty with a Souls-like twist on the combat. Yeah, I don't know. That sounds freaking awesome, because I've always wanted two things, but it's the same thing for two different games. I've always wanted a co-op Skyrim experience. I've always wanted a real, true, full co-op, and oh my god, I couldn't even dream of a split-screen Souls, like, Dark Souls experience, but we have this game that is marrying, in my opinion, Skyrim and Dark Souls together, and I think through every video that I've seen, you should watch it too. You read on the website, look at the Steam page. This game's actually releasing freaking this month, keeping the hype alive. Anyways, so 26th, it should be releasing into early access, if I'm not mistaken, on Steam, and it's gonna have freaking split screen. Okay, anyways. So, this game, from everything that I've seen, it looks like it's really kind of taking both ideas, Skyrim, Dark Souls, putting them together. Hopefully, it's the best of both worlds. I definitely have some criticisms, maybe, of what I've seen so far. I know some YouTubers got early access. I asked, they didn't give it to me. I guess I'm not cool enough. I don't fit that YouTube algorithm. Makes sense. I get it. But whatever. Anyways, I still got some thoughts and feelings I want to talk about here. Mainly talking about the combat of this game. And we're going to roll out a few more videos kind of trying to gestate what's kind of being thrown out there in publication. The trailers, the streams, and I actually implore that you guys go watch the trailers raw. Go do that. I'm going to throw some stuff in the background, some stream footage, some trailer footage. But go check this game out yourself as soon as possible, because there's a lot of really good videos and trailers that are just full explanations of these mechanics and things. But of course, here I'm going to kind of assume some things, and I'm going to kind of preview, review, judge a book by its cover here and just try to have some fun. And if you haven't heard about this game, well, now you have, but it's actually a game that's doing really well on YouTube. A lot of people talking about it, a lot of people excited, so let's jump in. Why are people excited about it? And I think main meat and taters, this game hasn't shown anything that's ridiculous, story, it's not an insanely unique world. I don't think it's really shown anything that, graphics, it's not insanely artistic in any one way, and mechanically, for the most part, we've seen all of these things in games previously. It's just we haven't seen all these things together. And a big thing is that this is co-op. The game is focused on cooperation, and I think that's what just really kind of turns a lot of people on. So we have things like the co-op Skyrim mod getting very, very popular. People really do love MMOs. Obviously, on my channel, it's the most popular thing. People love fantasizing about MMOs, but it's not just MMOs, right? We have looter shooters. We've got your monster hunters, things like that. We do have dungeon crawlers and your Path of Exiles, your Warframes. We do have games that aren't MMOs, but they're these online games as a service that we really enjoy diving into and playing with our friends that do offer us that sort of, a power fantasy or that sort of role play experience, but with friends. And it's really hard to do that. I totally understand that. It's very difficult to do that, because how do you make a story but have other people drop in and drop out with you? And I think Outward's approach is that the story is much more sincere, potentially, hopefully it will be, but it's supposed to be more sincere, more along the lines of a Skyrim kind of experience, because you're expected to be, it's supposed to be a full co-op game. It's not so much drop in, drop out. It's more of a hardcore game. It does have survival mechanics. There's even heat, things like that, armor gives you protection, but it also has insulation levels, and you actually get weighed down by your backpack. You can remove and have different kinds of backpacks. A lot of little tiny details like that are going to perforate the entire game. So it's more of a hardcore game, and the fact that they're even implementing split screen, I think, is really showing that they want you in for the long haul. It's like reading a book at the same time with someone else. That's a very hard thing to do. And with MMOs, if you guys have ever quested in MMOs, you know what I'm talking about. If you tried any of the co-op mods or trying to, buddy system in Dark Souls, it's generally really clunky. So a game like this that offers this, apparent gameplay that's like Skyrim and Dark Souls together, that's super sexy, right? And if it actually has a good story that's really played, I guess, or told well, and does play well, split screen or, cooperatively, very consistently cooperatively. If I could just play for an entire day with someone and it's just smooth, consistent, and the story isn't broken in any sort of way, I think it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be a very unique experience, even if aesthetically and mechanically, the game's not that unique. But let's actually go ahead into the second point of why this game is exciting, is because the mechanics actually are seemingly interesting. And if they do, like I have to admit, bullet point on paper, we have seen these things in other games. That's true. But this is where I really wanted to dive into this conversation. I'm somebody who I've played a lot of action RPGs. I've really dived into games like Monster Hunter, and right now I'm playing Bloodborne because they got the event Back to Yharnam. I love that every year. They have the Back to Yharnam and the Back to Dark Souls events, so super cool to jump into those. Anyways, I play those games. I like those games. I love Dark Souls. Skyrim, maybe not so much, but Oblivion was definitely my jam. Okay, peanut butter jelly, loved it. I always wanted to play those games co-op, but the thing was, between those two games, there actually was some issues playing those games in terms of the fighting, in terms of the combat. Some of the things are really good, some things are really bad, and this game, I think, is going to inherit some issues, but really more so, I think it's going to inherit maybe some bias. As in, like, it's going to be a game not for everybody. Even though it is supposed to be co-op, it's obviously not just like a Path of Exile. It's obviously not a Warframe. It's obviously not a game as a service, quite. It's not a game that you can just jump into, and it's not going to be a game for anybody, even if you are a fan of action RPG. And I'm going to be specifically talking about that there is, okay, so in Skyrim, the combat, if you think sword and board, that's actually boring as fuck. Let's be honest, almost overwhelmingly, all of us, like, we try out the weird and intricate magic systems, and we mostly play the game cheese, stealth, bow, nuking with magic, and playing around with the inventory system. Like, the game is really more about preparation, strategy, things like that. That's Skyrim. That's how you play Skyrim. It's a very RPG. Well, I mean, more so Oblivion and then more so Morrowind, but you get what I'm saying, compared to Dark Souls, where Dark Souls is much less about cheese and more about muscling enemies. So the way I can get to describe it is Dark Souls is a game where you fight against the rules of the boss. Like, you're in the arena, you're in the boss fight, or you're in the zone, and you're playing that game. You're playing with the enemy's rules. When you're playing Skyrim, especially being a sandbox, it's a game where it's like you make up the rules. You can come in as prepared as possible. You can just wipe anything instantaneously, even on the hardest difficulty, if you are prepared enough. Like, you can become invincible, basically, if you strategize and prepare well enough. So I do really appreciate also Skyrim's stealth abilities and things like that. I love the fact that you can prepare traps, kind of-ish, not really. Not as good as Dark Messiah or Dishonored or anything like that. But Dark Souls just, like, they're both action RPGs. And obviously I know, like, their world settings, their levels are different, and their core physics are very different. But, like, in a lot of ways, on paper, they actually are very similar, despite being third person versus first person. And Outward is kind of marrying the two. So where are they giving and taking, and is that going to appeal to you? So I can tell you right now that immediately the melee combat and the boss encounters that I'm seeing on the trailers look very Souls inspired. That's a good thing, because well, like Oblivion, Morrowind, Skyrim, that's, like, honestly, I don't know, the AI is kind of dumb in my opinion, and the encounters are really more attrition based. So yeah, you can cheese, and there's a lot of strategy around it, but when you're actually in the encounter in real time, it's got, like, nothing on Dark Souls, okay? So yeah, all that epicosity with the strategy, but mechanically, yeah, I'm not really feeling anything. But of course, the opposite kind of to Dark Souls, there's really not that much cheese. You kind of can. There is some strategy with different builds and things, but for the most part, you jump into an arena, and a lot of the fights can be, like, it's very, very mechanical heavy, right? It's really hard to just one-shot anything. You have to play very specifically to do things like that. For the most part, you are going to be learning the patterns of the creature. You're going to be dodging and rolling, and there are very specific cheeses with certain monsters and certain encounters, but for the most part, it's like, that's a very mechanics-heavy game that really reduces a tremendous amount of strategy inside of the zone. So I think this game, being a marriage of the two, is going to probably have melee combat and, sword, board, spear, kind of knightish style. If you play that type of archetype, that might feel similar to Dark Souls. I don't think it's going to feel as good as Monster Hunter or Bloodborne or Dark Souls, but I think it also is going to add a layer of strategy, because if you see on the trailers, you have stuff like traps, poisons, heavily influenced, and especially the magic system. This is, oh my gosh, this is where I could gush. The magic system it kind of reminds me actually of the preparation, which also does actually exist in Dark Souls. A number of Souls-like games have this idea that you can only use so many spells in any given encounter or in any given, time period or zone or level or bonfire, So you do have a level of like preparation. Like, okay, do I use my pyro nuke here or do I wait? Should I save it? Well, there's a little bit of that. And of course in Skyrim, you do have to have a little bit of preparation. If you just blast, some trash mobs and then the boss comes out and you're out of mana, or God help you if you're out of stamina, you're GG, okay? So there's a lot of preparation in both games, okay, maybe not a lot of preparation, but there is preparation in both games. But I think Outward is taking it an extra step because you're going to be doing things like you have to prepare actually materials. Specifically, like magic uses materials to actually enhance the magic, which is kind of reminiscent of like RuneScape or something, or maybe some very classic RPGs, pen and paper RPGs, where you actually use regents, use items, and then even when you do use those items, they create very specific buff zones, such as like sigils or glyphs on the ground. And so if you use your spark fire, then you can finally, it turns into a fireball, things like that. Hopefully it's multi-tiered and not just a single layer, where it's like, okay, you have a weak attack and then you can buff it with a regent and then make it a strong attack. Hopefully there's extra things that we can twist and turn and mutate in that, because that's really going to be the sex there, right? So hopefully you can mix and match and combine spells in certain ways, but that's all, kind of assumption there. But regardless, we can see the direction that the game wants to go in with its magic system, with its itemization, with its combat, specifically spike traps, specifically making trailers and videos highlighting the cheese of the game, where it's like, yeah, there's this monster, which looks a lot like a Dark Souls fight, but you know what? Just, do some spike traps, have some poison arrows, and just hold up your shield and GG. They're basically like saying, yeah, you can totally cheese this game. But at the same time, it's not all cheese, which kind of happens in Skyrim. You guys know what I'm saying, right? Like, I know people love Skyrim, but like, it's no Dark Souls. And so I like the fact that this game has both the option to cheese and then the option to muscle in brute force. So hopefully that's going to play, obviously, like with the magic system, it's going to be kind of more Skyrim-y, but well, it's still interesting spell effects that I think is more akin to Dark Souls. The magic and things still kind of looks, I don't know, a little Soulsy to me with the combat, because the monsters are doing Souls-like movesets, but still, of course the melee is going to be Souls-like, but I think we got to see kind of how the archery works, how the stealth works, and visibility. If that information's out there, I'm sorry I missed it, but that's definitely my favorite. Hopefully there is a lot of different ways to play the game, and hopefully we can mix and match and blend those things together, because double-edged sword here, with the fact that they're trying to do so much, they have this interesting preparation-focused magic system, they do have traps, and they do have, like, this melee combat, and a Souls-like monster moveset. All these things are really cool, but, I don't think, if you just go sword and board, I don't think it's going to be as good as Dark Souls. And if you just go magic, I very much doubt it's going to feel as fun or as power fantasy as Skyrim. Skyrim, like I said before, you can nuke entire rooms, you can set up ridiculous stuff, and it can feel really good, Yeah, the sword and board in Skyrim sucks, but at the same time, this game's trying to do both, right? It's trying to do both, so hopefully it's the best of both worlds, and as a player, we can experience the best of both worlds, which I'm assuming is going to happen. Even though I'm going to be a mage, I'm probably still going to be, dodge rolling, I'm still going to be encountering these fights, I'm still going to be throwing out fireballs and, whipping out different spells, which you can do a lot of really fun stuff in Dark Souls as well as a magic caster. I'm just a little bit worried that the spells aren't going to be as complex as they're kind of hinting at. See, that's the thing, is all these trailers of what they say and kind of what they show, we don't know how the game's actually gonna play. And I'm worried that the cooperation factor is kind of a crutch for having not very complex actual raw gameplay physically. So what I want, especially because the game is totally focused on being cooperative, or that's a big meat of the game, I really want spells that have combo fields, which is something that we see in Guild Wars. And I actually did notice that in the visceral combat, or the physical combat, I don't know if this works with spells and arrows and things, but you actually do have a break bar. This is something that's kind of in a couple of MMOs. Recently, I just actually played a game called Kurtzspell, which, if you want to watch that video, it looks like it works exactly like this. Basically, there's like a gray health kind of bar down below, so you're doing damage, and as you do damage, this gray bar, runs out, and when it runs out, then the monster goes into a staggered state. Dark Souls kind of uses stagger states, but you have to always have like a giant big weapon or do a massive amount of damage. In this game, it seems like it's a little bit more balanced, so that anybody can do it, but with cooperation in mind, Hopefully we have spells and effects and certain weapons that do maybe less damage, but they specifically do more stagger damage. So then they can stagger or CC, knock back, really work on that cooperation. And that's what I want to see. The thing is I haven't really seen that. Now, I've peered through a few streams, I've peered through a few videos, and as much as I could hype up, the magic system, all the preparation, the strategy, thing is like Skyrim kind of has that too, to an extent. I do think that they are going to go a step up. I do think they're going to have preparation to be a level up, at least a level up. But I'm just thinking like, to be a brand new game, to be so hyped, right? To be so excited, I really want it to go full force and have a very cohesive, singular, like pinpoint objective when making this game. So it seems to me it's like Skyrim, Dark Souls, put it together and make that bitch co-op, okay? Awesome. So best of both worlds, at the same time focusing on what makes those two games great, that would also be fun cooperatively. So if you're gonna have enhanced spells, if you're gonna have that Souls-like combat, and you're even gonna have like that stagger bar, the break bar, if you're gonna have things like that, make it so that different builds, it is an RPG after all the survival mechanics as well. I know there's gonna be some cooperation. Maybe your teammate is just a merchant. I don't know, that could be cool too, and he holds everything while you do all the combat. But hopefully, in terms of the well-roundedness of the game, both players can work together, not just trading off of things like, okay, you're the tank and I'm the damage dealer. Hopefully there's a bit more nuance and complexity to it than that, because otherwise then we might as well just be playing almost any other MMO, right? Where it's just, the very face value, okay, tank, healer, damage kind of thing. This is a game that's more subtle. It's a game that is obviously it's more hardcore. It's supposed to be more intimate. So hopefully the mechanics are much more intimate. And I'm just a little bit scared because the game seems a little bit clunky. The game hasn't really shown off too many magics. And overall for the cooperative gameplay, I haven't seen anything to the like explosivity that I see in games like Monster Hunter, and debatably even in games like Dark Souls, which the way they implement co-op is kind of weird in those games. But I'm just saying sometimes when you get like a support mage playing against you and you're fighting a giant dragon, holy fuck, that feels really freaking good, You get your son bro in there, oh man, dude, he's shooting lightning bolts and you're just running in with a giant greatsword. The cooperation can actually feel really great. And the same thing with Monster Hunter. You don't need a tank healer, a DPS combination in those games at all, because there's so much more nuance in the physical gameplay. So the clunk of this game and the fact that it's trying to promote itself on being a deep survival, open world RPG, I just haven't seen enough of it to be fully convinced. But, I'm still keeping the hype alive, because at the base value, right, which I kind of actually say this a lot of videos on these hype videos, but like the foundation of this game is a really solid, unique idea. So it's safe to be, hype about it. It's safe to have some hope. But really, because it is an action RPG, depending on how players play with the action, depending on how actiony it is, like also the enemies seem a little bit floaty, seem a little bit slow. I haven't seen anything that was really engrossing to me in terms of like mob content. This actually seems less enticing than a lot of MMOs, which being an MMO, of course they're going to be slow and awkward, but I'm just saying like this really, it really feels almost like it's really more of a co-op Skyrim that's pretending to be Dark Souls versus a Souls-like game that's expanded to a Skyrim scale. That's what I'm worried about. So it could be the best of both worlds, but it could also just be a half-assed attempt at just, marketing itself. It's really just like a B game, maybe. But hey, some B games are fucking awesome. So that's just kind of my thoughts and feelings, guys. I just kind of threw that out there. I didn't really edit this video. I didn't script this video. I'm just saying stuff and things because I wanted to make a video about something that I am looking forward to. Despite the negativity, I don't know. It's a mixed video, but that's how people are, right? People are nuanced. A review's positive and negatives, and that's just the kind of vibe I'm getting from this game. This looks like it's going to be a, B game. I think it's going to be a solid B game that has potential for certain people, very specific people in the world, especially if you can, play with those certain people co-op. I think you're going to have a freaking blast. And to end the video, actually, I'm going to give a recommendation of my favorite B game, which I actually mentioned in this video. It is a game called Dark Messiah. It is actually by Arcane Studios, who went on to make Dishonored. So, Dishonored, AAA game, undoubtedly a very famous game, one of the best stealth games out there. But, fun fact, Dark Messiah, and you can actually watch Total Biscuit's video on the game, which got me to play the game. I used to play it on Xbox. They had a demo of it. The multiplayer's dead, but it is one of the best action RPG. It focuses as a stealth game. Play on the hardest difficulty, play it stealth. You can play it magic or arrow or, brawl it, whatever, but it's mostly a stealth action RPG. and it is fucking fantastic. It's cheesy, it's campy, but it's amazing. Absolutely my favorite B game. So, is Outward going to be my next favorite B action RPG? I don't know. Let's find out. Hopefully we can find out together. Remember to actually follow at twitch.tv/Skylent and subscribe here on the channel because we got more content coming out on this game and other games like it, actually. So yeah, just keeping the hype alive. Hopefully you do too. And I'll see you again next time.